You know, every year about this time when graduation season rolls around, I begin to think back on my high school graduation, which gets further and further away from me each year. Is anybody else experience that? Okay. I think about my high school song. I was in the class of 1999. We were the last of the century and the best of the century. But that's actually not how centuries work at all. We were still the next to last of the century. Anyways, but our song was Prince's Party Like It's 1999. That was our class song. And so I think about this song and a couple of other songs that have sort of made their way into our culture, into the culture of the 90s. And there's two that stick out in particular that have to do with changes in life. One comes from 1992, Boyz II Men. They had a song called The End of the Road. The End of the Road. Now, if you've ever heard Boyz II Men, you know that smooth harmony, it just like hits you in the chest and it won't let you go. And the title says it all. We've come to the end of the road. That's often how we talk about graduation. It's the end of a journey. It's the finish line. You have made it. You're done. This is where the road ends. Well, is it? Then there's this other song that came out in 1997 by a band named Green Day. And some of the millennials in here are shaking their heads because they know which song this is. It's called Good Riddance. And the first line of the song goes like this: another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Green Day is not saying that this moment is the end of the road. It's just a fork in the road. That's a little bit better, isn't it? We've been busy saying goodbye. Maybe too busy, that maybe we forgot to ask goodbye to what exactly, and hello to what. Because a fork in the road means that the road keeps on going. It means that you've got a choice to make about which way you're headed and what comes next. But here's what I want to tell you this morning. Isaiah 43 won't even let us stop at a fork in the road, because the God we serve isn't standing at a signpost pointing you toward one path or another. This God, from Isaiah 43, our God, is out ahead of you, is making a way for you where there is no way, building a road where there is not a road yet. Listen to how Isaiah opens this passage. He reminds Israel of the greatest miracle in their history, the Exodus. The parting of the Red Sea, how God made a way through the mighty waters, swallowing up Pharaoh's army and delivering God's people from 400 years of slavery and captivity in Egypt. This is the defining moment of the Hebrew people. This is the story that you would tell your children and grandchildren. This is the miracle that proves who God is and who you are. But get this. This is fascinating to me. God says through the prophet Isaiah, forget it. Forget it. Now, wait a minute. Don't mishear that. God isn't saying that the Exodus didn't matter, that the parting of the Red Sea didn't matter. God isn't saying that your history isn't real or that your story isn't worth telling. What God is saying is something more challenging than all of that. What God's saying is not to let the great miracle in your past set the ceiling for what God is about to do next in your life. Don't let the past 4 years, high school graduates, define the next 40 years of your life. Don't be the guy or the girl whose life peaked at high school, because God's got so much more in store for you than just these last 4 years. See, when Isaiah writes his message from God to the people of Israel, they're in exile in a land called Babylon, and they've been there for decades. And the danger wasn't that they'd forgotten the Exodus story. The danger wasn't that they had somehow begun to let that memory fade from their mind. The danger is that they got so fixated on what God did back then that they couldn't see what God was doing right now, where God was leading them. They were so busy looking in the rearview mirror that they were missing what was breaking forth right in front of them. I do want to be a little careful here. I don't want to rush past this moment too fast. Because let's be honest, this is a turning point. This is the end of a road and the beginning of another. And there are people in this room today who are grieving, moms and dads who've raised this child. You've poured everything that you had into them. You went to ball games and recitals and school plays, and you've helped them with homework when you didn't know what a log had to do with math. I thought logs were just for shop building. I don't know. You've helped with homework. You've prayed over and through some hard nights. And I know all too well that it feels like something is ending. And that grief is real. Don't let anybody tell you it isn't. But here's what Isaiah will not let us do. Isaiah won't let us confuse the end of a chapter with the end of the story. He won't let us confuse those things. This is the end of a chapter in our students' life as you graduates. This is the end of a chapter in your life. This is not the end of the story. Because the same God who's made a way through the Red Sea, the same God has already gone ahead of you and is going ahead of our children and our grandchildren into the next chapter of their lives. And the question isn't whether or not God is there. The question is whether we're willing to stop staring at what's behind us long enough to perceive what's already breaking through. Y'all, don't let the last 4 years define the next 40 years of your life. Don't let the good, the bad, or even the ugly, or the triumphs and victories, don't let them dictate your future. Dare to trust God with who you are and who you are becoming. Dare to let God lead you into a place of promise and purpose and hope. If you'll do that, what you'll find is that God is already there. Because God is already doing a new thing. God is already doing the new thing. And he asks us, do you not perceive it? Do you not see it? That's not an announcement. That's a question. And it's not a gentle or a soft question either. There's an edge to that question that God asks us. It's a kind of question a parent asks a child who's staring at the floor when the answer is right there in front of them. We play this little game occasionally in our house where we'll call out two numbers and ask, what is 7 times 12? And because I wasn't good at learning my times tables, I have to do some mental gymnastics in my head. So what I do internally is say, 7 times 10 is 70 plus 14 is 84. And that's how I arrive at my conclusion because my specialty is in words, not numbers. That's what Excel's for. So I come up to the number quickly, but I can watch Addie and Lily Grace at times thinking, processing, the wheels turning to begin to perceive what the answer to the question is. God often looks at us staring at our lives and asks, do you not perceive it? Do you not see what I'm doing? Do you not understand the way that I'm making for you? Do you not have eyes to see it? God doesn't say, I'm going to do a new thing someday, or I'm going to do a new thing eventually when you get your stuff together, or when you graduate college, or you get that great job, or you get married, or buy the house, or whatever else it might be. No, the verb tense used here in Isaiah is present and it's active. God says, even now, it's springing up right now, like a shoot, breaking through the soil in the springtime. You don't see the whole plant yet, but you begin to understand that there's a lot that's been going on beneath the soil to bring that plant to that moment. You might not be sure what the plant even is yet, but there's the promise of something new. Y'all, the next chapter of your life, whether you're a graduate or you're just here this morning, it's already begun. You might not have noticed it yet, but God isn't waiting for your graduation ceremony to be over to get busy doing the new thing. God isn't waiting for you to figure out your plan. God is already out there ahead of you, ahead of us, already at work, calling us forward, leading us into the future that he has for us. And then God tells us something remarkable about his character. and about his provision. God says, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? And then he says, I am making a way in the wilderness. Now, this is important. God says he's making a way in the wilderness, not a way around the wilderness, not a way over the wilderness. God says, I'm making a way through the wilderness. See, God understands that there are wild places out there in our lives. There are places that are deserted and desolate. There are places that are dry and broken. God doesn't deny that at all. But he promises us that he's going ahead of us and that he's making a way for us. Now, graduates, some of you are stepping into genuine wildernesses in the next couple months. Maybe you're heading off to college and you don't know a single soul on the campus that you're about to attend. Maybe you're entering into the workforce and you're not sure if this job is actually going to work out for you, and maybe you're not sure that you're ready yet. Maybe you've got a plan, but somewhere underneath the cap and gown, there's that quiet question being asked in your soul, what if this doesn't work out the way I think it will? Others of us in the room this morning, we may be older, but we're wrestling with the very same questions. We're all dealing with wildernesses, with the same worries, with the same concerns. Will I find my people? Am I ready? Am I going to be okay? Y'all, that's all wilderness speak. And Isaiah doesn't pretend the wildernesses aren't real, because they are. But here's what God and the prophet would want us to understand today, that the wilderness is not outside of God's jurisdiction. That unfamiliar campus, that new city, that new job that you haven't started yet, the relationship that you don't know how to manage or navigate at this point, none of that terrain is uncharted to God. In every season of life, we know that God has already been there and he's already making a way. The same God that parted the Red Sea. And remember, we just said, forget that, because what's coming is even bigger. That God is already in your wilderness, already building a road that you can't see yet. But God doesn't just stop there. God doesn't just say, I'm making a way, I'm making a path, but God says he's actually providing for us in the midst of the wildernesses of life. He says, I'm putting streams in the wasteland. The God who doesn't deny the wildernesses we walk through provides and gives provision for us in the places we think are most desolate. God says, I'm putting water in the desert, springs in the wasteland. I'm giving provision in places that you have no idea. Now think about what that means for us practically. The Israelites, again, they are in exile. They're in Babylon, which is not their home, not their land, not their people. And God is saying, I will provide for you right here, right where you are, right now. I will provide for you. Not when you get back home, not when the circumstances are comfortable again. Right here in the midst of the mess and the wasteland, I will provide for you. In the midst of the complexity and the confusion of life, I will provide for you. And here's the part that I love. God says, when that provision shows up, even the jackals and the owls will honor God for it. That the whole of creation will recognize when God steps forward and provides. That creation itself responds when God shows up and does what only God can do. So friends, here's what I need you to hear this morning. The provision that God has for your next season, it's probably not going to look like what you expect it to look like. The way, the road, the path that God is forging for you, it may not look like what you thought it would. It may be a professor that you didn't expect to matter, or a class or course that just struck something inside of you. It might be a friendship that you didn't even go looking for, a door that opens from a direction that you didn't expect, an opportunity that looks nothing like what you planned, but turns out to be exactly what you need. Just don't be so locked into what you think God's provision is supposed to look like. that you miss the streams of living water that God is already putting in the wastelands and the wildernesses of your life. Now, I want us to turn for just a minute to the last verse of this passage, verse 21. And I want you to hear it clearly. Isaiah says that they will be the people I form for myself, that they may proclaim my praise. Isaiah uses a very intentional word. God speaks a very intentional word here. It's the Hebrew word Yatsar. And it's a word that has to do with pottery, with clay making. It's the word that's used when the Bible says that God formed and fashioned Adam and Eve from the dust of the ground. Yatsar. It's the word that is used in Jeremiah 18 when he goes to the potter's house and sees the potter throwing clay. It's not an accidental word, Yatsar. It's a deliberate, intentional, and careful word packed with meaning for you and for me. You see, a potter doesn't throw clay on a wheel just to see what happens. A potter, a master artist, begins with something in mind before the work actually begins to take shape. The shape, the purpose, the function, all of it is in the potter's imagination before the clay ever gets touched. And God looks at you this morning, cap and gown and all, and says, I formed you. I formed you, Yatsar. I knew what I was making before I started making it. Every piece of you has been crafted and created with intention. Every part of you is being formed for the purpose and the future that I have for you. Y'all, we're not the result of a series of fortunate events, or a series of unfortunate events for that matter. You are not a collection of good grades, recommendation letters, extracurricular activities. You're so much more than that. And the God of the universe is shaping you and forming you on purpose and for a purpose by a God who does not make mistakes and a God who does not waste clay. God doesn't waste any part of your life, any season, any moment, any triumph, any tragedy. No, God is working redemption through every single piece of it. Because God doesn't just say, I formed you. God says, I formed you for myself. That means your degree, your diploma is not the point. Your salary, your title, your accomplishments, none of that is the point of it all. The point is that in every classroom, every boardroom, every operating room, every courtroom, every living room, you are someone who is being formed by God to declare who God is by the way that you live your life. I'm going to say that again because you need to hear it again and I need to hear it again. In every place and in every space that you will go, you are there as someone who is being formed by God to declare who God is by the way you choose to live and love. That's what proclaim my praise means. It's not about singing on Sunday morning. No, the words here carry the idea of telling a story, declaring to the whole world around you by your integrity, by your compassion, by your work ethic, your willingness to make a way for others, just who the God is that's made you and is making you. You're not stepping into randomness. You're not stepping off of a cliff into uncertainty. You are stepping into the next phase of purpose that was written before you drew your very first breath. And here's how it all comes together, friends. The God who says, forget the former things, he's not asking you to forget where you came from. He's freeing you from letting where you came from become a cage. The God who asks, do you not perceive it? God, he's not scolding you for being slow. No, he's inviting you to open your eyes to see what God is already doing in the road ahead. And the God who formed you for himself, he's not putting pressure on you to be perfect. He's reminding you that you didn't show up here by accident. And you're not leaving here without a purpose. No, you're being shaped, formed, molded, and built for what's next. Not because you're ready, not because you figured it all out, not because the road ahead is clear and comfortable and measured out to the very last mile, but because the God who makes ways in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland, that God has formed you and is out ahead of you and is making a way for you and providing for you and shaping you and forming you. So don't be afraid and don't dwell on the past. Look forward into a future that is bright and beautiful and good. And give God the praise and the glory for the great things that he has done. Graduates, I want to speak on behalf of our church today. We are proud of you. We are proud of who you are, and we are proud of who you are becoming. Thank you for being a part of our Pittman Park family, for giving us grace when we didn't deserve it, for loving us well, and for letting us love you. You have shaped this place, just as this place has shaped you. So now you're going to go, but you're not going alone. You're not going unprepared, and you're not going without a purpose. No, you go forward as a people formed by God, claimed by God, and sent by God into a world that desperately needs to see who God is by the way you live your life. The road ahead is not the end of the road. It's not even a fork in the road. It's a way being made in the wilderness by a God who's never lost track of you.